They say that silence is the ultimate weapon of power, but also a source of great strength. In this video, pride is king, and we're gonna go over some ways to dominate stealth in Cyberpunk 2077 with a select few of weapons, attachments, mods, perks, and cyberware. But before we dive into it, stealth has a couple of styles that you might want to consider first, and obviously it would depend on you on which ones that sounds, looks, and feels fun to play. One of which is to stay from a distance and eliminate the enemies through the use of ranged weapons or quick hacks. It's safe, convenient, and a whole lot easier to manage. The other is more on the personal side, where you get up close to your targets, then perform a takedown. This one requires a lot of mobility, knowledge of the area or encounter you're on, and can only be very effective if supplemented by quick hacking. On the upside, it's freaking cool as heck. Let's start with the perks. There are two attributes that provide significant aid to your stealthing. Most notably is the cool attribute. Killer Instinct will give an additional 25% damage to your silenced guns and will provide an estimate damage to your targets. Gag Order will delay detection for a few seconds after they've detected you or haven't gone down to your shots the first time. Always remember that these two perks here are very important to have in stealth, and they're attainable right from level 1. So be sure to grab them as soon as you have a couple of perk points to spare. Work your way up the tree here in the middle to get Ninjutsu, which will allow you to crouch sprint. Grab Creeping Death and then get Vanishing Act. We'll also be relying on the optical camo cyberware, and the most efficient way to use that ability is through this perk. Then, some useful perks over here on the left side that provide additional damage output when using handguns and sniper rifles, which we'll talk about in a bit. Grab Deadeye for the headshot weak spot damage bonus, long shot to get rid of damage fall off, and if you prefer, Nerves of Tungsten Steel to guarantee critical hits whenever you deal Deadeye headshots with your silenced sniper rifle, aka the Overwatch. And on the right tree for those who prefer the throwing approach, as they benefit your throwable weapons. Make sure to grab Juggler for the instant cooldown reset, and if you can, Style over Substance for guaranteed crit hits. Sleight of Hand for more crit damage, and Bounce to perform finishers from a distance. As for the other attribute that will aid your stealthing, right over here in the Intelligence attribute are various quick hacking perks that will improve your quick hacking, only if you choose to have them for your build. And if you do, for upload speed bonuses, get Hack Q, Q Acceleration, and Q Prioritization, then work your way into getting Q Mastery to maximize your Q size. We'll be taking advantage of a few covert and control quick hacks to supplement our stealthing. And if you want to push your quick hacking a little more, the middle tree here will provide various effects for your quick hacks through the use of the Overclock ability. Grab Optimization to get Subordination to extend the duration of your control quick hacks. Work your way up the tree until you get Overclock, in which when you run out of RAM from doing quick hacks, you'll consume health instead. And then if you can, grab Spillover to have a good 50% chance for your quick hacks to spread to an additional target. For cyberware, you can install any of those that have attunement with a cool attribute, which would also have headshot damage bonus. With a maxed out cool, they'll provide an additional 4% bonus to your headshot weak spot damage stat. And if you have multiple of these cyberware installed, they will add up together. Furthermore, if you can manage to roll modifiers on your cyberware to have additional headshot damage multipliers, even better. For the nervous system, the Tyrosine Injector grants additional damage output, especially if you are performing takedowns. For legs, Link's Paws will provide quieter movement and of course some more headshot damage bonus through attunement. For your Kiroshis, you can either go for Clairvoyant to spot enemies behind walls and for the attunement bonus, or the Oracle for the complete package. Down here at the Integumentary system, you want to have the optical camo to have the ability to cloak yourself. Most of the time, you won't really activate this on its own, but instead through the use of the perk Vanishing Act. When you crouch sprint, you activate optical camo, and then when you stop, you have a second to spare before exiting the ability. You get to use camo this way for as many times as you want, so long as you have charge. For the operating system, you can simply go for the Apogees and Deviston for the incredible amount of time dilation and the effect where it extends duration for every enemy you neutralize. But if you want your stealth builds to incorporate quick hacking, you can either go for the Tetatronic Rippler for the additional damage boost effect or the Arasaka for some trace reduction. Now for quick hacks, Ping is useful for when you want to track enemies during an encounter. Remember that you can tag enemies while their outlines are showing through the walls, so take advantage of that. Sonic Shock will prevent enemies from hearing your gunshots, your movements, and they won't be able to communicate with their allies. Perfect for getting close and shooting your targets without anyone alerting the area. A Tier 4 Memory Wipe will prevent traceable Quickhacks from getting traced if you put it first on the queue, especially useful when you upload Quickhacks like Reboot Optics, with at least a Tier 4 variant, will completely blind your targets and also increase your damage against them. Generally, you want to upload Reboot Optics to your targets first before eliminating them with your weapon. And Cyberware Malfunction, which will boost all damage against the target depending on the amount of stacks you uploaded. Very effective against high armored enemies, especially if you have the iconic variant. Just upload at least 4 stacks of the Quickhack, then score a headshot with your silence weapon. For your ultimate Quickhack slot, you can use System Collapse, which will instantly neutralize the target, but the big downside to this is that it's very expensive for your RAM, so taking advantage of the RAM cost reduction effect will serve you well. For every time you reduce trace progress, RAM cost gets cut. Abilities that can reduce trace progress are the Shadow Runner perk, the Memory Wipe Quickhack, and System Collapse itself, provided you have at least the Tier 5 variant. And aside from these attachable Quickhacks, there are also Quickhacks that are already included in your Cyber deck, and a couple of these can be utilized in stealth. One of which is Distract Enemies, where it can be uploaded to devices, an effective little crowd control to manipulate their positions, and Camera Control, as the name implies, where you can take control of cameras, then hack into enemies through there. Also helps when you want to recon the area first before engaging. By using the Ping Quickhack, cameras in the area will be highlighted and they're yours for the taking, or hacking in this case. As for your weapons, there are a few that are effective for stealth and they're obtainable fairly easily throughout the course of the game. If you're in the early parts of the game, you can get yourself the Tamayura from the Kabuki gun vendor and attach any silencer on it. Simply put, it has a very high base damage and can pretty much one-shot most enemies, and can even be improved further with the right perks, mods, attachments, and other factors. If you are still working your way into getting the more powerful stealth weapons in the game, the Tamayura will do exceptionally well for now. Alternatively, the Niue has mostly similar stats as the Tamayura, thus an extra option if you want something better than your current stealth pistol. But for an even better version of the Niue, you might want to try out the iconic Death and Taxes. While it works exactly like its base variant stat-wise, this gun fires a 2-round burst fire every time you shoot, and with a decent fire rate on top of that. If you worry about failing to kill your target in one shot, the burst fire will solve that problem in most cases. Be warned though that this gun will drain your health for every shot you make. You can obtain this one during the mission X Factor. You can find it right here. Another iconic pistol you might want to consider is the Seraph. This one fires explosive rounds, and the way it works is that once you hit an enemy, the regular round gets inflicted first and then the explosive comes after. If a headshot won't kill a target, the explosive effect will finish the job. You can get this one once you complete all of the gigs in Haywood. Padre will send it to your stash. For something a little different, you can try out the Overwatch, which is an iconic variant of the Grad, but unlike its base variant, this one has a silencer attached to it. So long as you have the right perks from the cool attribute, especially Nerves of Tungsten Steel, you can eliminate targets from long range without getting detected. You can get this one after completing the mission Riders on the Storm. Throwable weapons can also be viable for stealth, but I recommend using them alongside Quickhacks. Utilizing Sonic Shock and Reboot Optics while also keeping a relatively close distance to your targets, you can efficiently kill them easily. I recommend the Punk Knife mainly because of the recovery time, and the Tomahawk or the Claw because why not, it's cool. You may find these weapons from the Pacifica melee weapon vendor. And then lastly, the one that I would highly recommend is the Pride of Rogue. This variant of the Liberty pistol is probably the best stealth pistol in the game due to its incredible critical damage and the ability to insta-crit with the first shot off the mag. Again, the first bullet will always inflict critical damage, and thus, against most enemies, you'll always guarantee a one-shot kill. Always remember to reload the gun after every shot. It's very important to obtain this one if you are running a stealth build, and it's definitely worth rushing through the main quest line, then going for Rogue's ending. Pick up the gun after defeating the final boss. So those are my recommendations, but before we move on, a couple of special mentions that I would like to include, but take note that these guns are only obtainable if you have Phantom Liberty. One is Her Majesty. If you have optical camo activated either through its own or through Vanishing Act, you'll always guarantee a critical hit whenever you score a headshot. One trick that I would do with camo and Vanishing Act is I would hold the sprint key while crouched, tap forward, then shoot the target's head. This will activate camo for a second and trigger the gun's special effect, which is a guaranteed critical headshot. You can get this one during the mission Get It Together. Another one is the Pariah, which is the only silenced tech pistol in the game. This one has 50% armor penetration, a fully charged shot firing 3 bullets at once, with each dealing full damage, and since it's a tech gun, it benefits from Bolt. As a stealth weapon, it's very effective, but if you fail at stealth, the Pariah can also be reliable in combat. Side with Songbird during Firestarter, then during the final confrontation with Reed, win the standoff. Now, just with these guns alone, there isn't really any point to them when they don't have any attachments and or mods. Here are the few important ones that you need to get, so keep an eye out for them. Generally, any silencer attachments that you can buy from gun vendors will do, especially if you're still progressing through your playthrough. But at a certain point, you'll eventually get the opportunity to buy a Strix, which boosts stealth damage by 150%, but at the cost of your gun's overall damage. But what you're really after is a Tier 5 Cetus, which is probably the best silencer in the game. Not only does it have a bonus 150% bonus damage in stealth, but for whenever you score headshots while undetected, you guarantee a critical hit. So getting this for your stealth pistol is pretty much a no-brainer. You can find these occasionally in gun vendors. You may also find them in containers in the open world, and also if you have Phantom Liberty, you can find them in airdrops. And as for mods, you're gonna want to have packs as it increases weapon damage by 20% outside of combat with a trade-off of decreased overall damage depending on the tier, with Tier 5 completely removing that penalty. You can easily buy them from gun vendors. You may craft one to Tier 5, then slot it into your Tamayura or Niue. For throwable weapons, a Tier 5 Javelin will add 25% armor penetration to your knife or axe and will double it when thrown, or 0G, mainly because of the no gravity effect. Remember that non-iconic weapons can roll with 2 empty mod slots. You get these weapons either from containers or by crafting them. You can stack 2 Paxes to essentially double the stealth damage bonus, and for throwables, you may stack 2 Javelins or mix together both a Javelin and a 0G. It's all up to you. And now for some demonstration. For your standard stealth pistol only style, you may simply go for either the Pride or Death and Taxes attached with a Tier 5 Cetus. You can mostly crouch sprint for most of the encounter and thus constantly activate optical camo with the perk Vanishing Act. Though if you want to mix up gunplay with some quick hacking, what I would usually do is to activate Overclock, then queue up Sonic Shock and reboot optics to every enemy you see to deafen and blind them. You can then proceed to eliminate all targets without alerting anyone in the area. Now, if you prefer throwing, quick hacking can be ideal against any enemies. Upload reboot optics to blind your targets, memory wipe to reduce trace and to stop any traceable quick hacks to gain progress, and stack cyberware malfunctions to boost damage against armored enemies. Position yourself well, ideally in front of targets to hit your throws. For takedowns, remember to have the perk Shadow Runner to constantly reset the trace progress so that you can upload reboot optics as much as you want without having to worry about the enemies finding you. Move around the place by crouch sprinting combined with camo and vanishing act. If you find a camera, you may use camera control to recon the area and tag enemies, or by just simply uploading as many quick hacks as you can before engaging, ideally with reboot optics, memory wipe, and sonic shock. Aerial takedowns are also possible by simply landing on their heads from a certain height distance. Now, throughout the course of your playthrough, you're not always going to have access to the high-end stuff, especially during the early game. During these stages of the game, you're going to want to rely on your cyberdeck hacks like camera control and distract enemies. Use distract enemies on devices to move your targets to a more convenient position or to make them look away from you. Quick hack will also highlight which enemy is going to be affected by the distraction, usually the one nearest to your targeted device. Utilize this quick hack well and don't be afraid to experiment. For quick hacks only, your method of taking anyone down is through the quick hack system collapse. Start by uploading any traceable quick hack. You may use reboot optics, then upload either a tier 3 or tier 4 memory wipe to reduce the trace progress. For every time you reduce trace progress, you'll get a stack of the system collapse effect, which will appear as a buff beside your health bar. Now, for some reason here, I got 2 stacks after uploading a single memory wipe, which is kind of weird. But anyway, you will now see the RAM cost reduced down to 4. Important note, you have to upload memory wipe and system collapse in 2 separate queues, not in a single one. You need to reduce the trace progress first before the RAM cost reduction effect comes into play. Just repeat the process for every enemy and you'll have everyone down in no time. That is pretty much it. Hope you all enjoyed the video. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to stay tuned for more guide and build videos for Cyberpunk 2077. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.